Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sergey Kunko, and I will present you our Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 installation and deployment. It will be a short slide deck and demo. And let's wait a minute to let people log in our platform. Meanwhile, please have a look at the chat panel, and I kindly ask you to type yes or put a plus sign there if you see my screen, if you hear me loud and clear. Yeah, thank you. Well, if you have any difficulties with the thank you very much. If you will have any difficulties with the sound or picture quality, please let me know. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. A couple of words about the organization of today's demo webinar. You were automatically muted on the entry. It's by design. It's okay. So you will be able to use the chat or Q&A panel to ask your questions, and we will post the recording at the presentation in several days after the webinar, so you'll be able to download it and recap some things you may need to know. And well, let's go forward. First of all, a couple of words about our product. So Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 is eliminating the risk of losing your Microsoft 365 data, wherever it be, an Exchange online, SharePoint online, OneDrive, or Microsoft Teams. And you can store your data, your backed up data on premises, on servers, local disks, or on NAS storage. And it is also possible to use several public object storages to store your backed up data with Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. Of course, there are a lot of ways to restore your data. For example, you can restore an email or several mails, SharePoint sites, documents, libraries. If we're talking about OneDrive, of course, files and folders, and Microsoft Teams, including public channels and tabs. Yeah. And of course, we have a powerful mechanism called e-discovery, which will help you with search in case you have a lot of users, a lot of objects, and you need to find the exact data, exact email. This e-discovery, this advanced search engine, will help you with that. Yeah. Well, what we will talk about. First, we will talk about setup. I will show you where you can find the appropriate documentation with the system requirements and other stuff. When we will have a demo with the installation process, and after that, I'll show you configuration of backup job, and gives you several examples. And after that, we will dive into credentials and password management. Well, Before we start demo, I'd like to tell you a couple of words about Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 architecture. In version 6, our last version at the moment. As I said before, we are able to back up Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, and of course, Microsoft Teams, because it's data located in all previous types of objects. And of course, we're able to back up Exchange on premises and SharePoint on premises. So one of the key features of our product is the ability to back up a hybrid environment. So for example, you can back up your Microsoft 365 data and, for example, restore your mails directly to your Exchange on premises or SharePoint. Not just Exchange on premises. Regarding the storage, the place you can store your backups, it's also we have several types of storages. As I said before, you can use your on-premises local storage, for example, or some kind of S3 compatible object storage, which is also can be on premises or in the cloud. And of course, we support Amazon S3, Microsoft Azure Blob, and IBM Cloud. So you can choose what type of storage you like and use it with our product. And another feature which comes with the version 6 is the ability to copy the data to the long-term object storage. As you can see, we support Amazon S3 Glacier, Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive, and Microsoft Azure Archive. And of course, there are a lot of scenarios for you to able to restore your data, your objects. And another very interesting feature, which is also comes with version 5, it is a self-service restore portal. It's a web. It's a special web portal which help you and your users to be able to do a self-restore. Yeah. So let's move on to the demo. I have already prepared the recording, so to be able fast forward and rewind and to be able to save your time. And yeah, but first, I'd like to show you a couple of interesting resources which will help you. Yep. Which will help you with the well, first of all, before we jump in to the installation process, we need to understand how much compute resources we need for the Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 servers. Well, it depends on the number of users and the amount of data. So here's all the requirements. You need to have a server. It doesn't matter where it's located. It can be on premises or it can be an Amazon virtual machine or an AWS EC2 instance. But in all the cases, you'll need to have a Microsoft Windows Server or Windows 10 or 11 client version to be able to install Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 server. Yeah, all the requirements you can find on our site in the documentation using the link that I show you right now. And after that, we need to know how much space we need to store our data. Well, in this case, we have a special web tool, which is called Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 Capacity Calculator. And there are two options. The first options, you need to have an administrative account to your organization in Microsoft 365. And in this case, we will make necessary calculation based on the amount of data and the number of users from your organization automatically. Yeah, and that's it. Pretty simple. If you want to do a manual calculation, or you don't have an appropriate rights or permission to be able to connect to your organization Microsoft 365, or I don't know, in other cases, you can use the manual calculator. So here you can put the amount of data you have. For example, I put my data. Yeah, here, the retention policy. The retention policy defines the time period of the data you want to retain on the disks. Yeah. So I choose the retention period for all my backed up data, 1 year, for example. Also, I can define the number of Teams users and scroll down. I'll receive the amount of data I need in a local repository or in object storage, depending on what I want to use. Yeah. So here is the number what we need for the installation for the Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 deployment. So now we need to decide where we will locate our Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 servers. In case we want to locate it in Azure, on Azure VM, we have a special template in Azure Marketplace. You can find it. Just type the Veeam in a search menu at the marketplace in Azure Marketplace, and you can find the Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. There are several templates you can choose from. The minimal requirement and the maximum. Yeah. And depending on the number of users, and you can choose one of them and deploy it. And in case you want to locate your Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 server in AWS, we have the same template in AWS Marketplace. Yeah, so we can find it there and choose the right one. And in case you'd like to install your Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 on premises somewhere on your local virtual machine or physical server, you need to download an ISO file with Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 files. So in this case, first of all, we need to access our personal account on www.veeam.com. Yep. And from the main page, you can find the product here, Microsoft 365. So you can push the download button or just sign in with your personal account. If you don't have one, please use your corporate email address. It's absolutely free. And after the short registration process, you will be able to download an ISO file with Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 installation files. Yeah. So finally, let's move on to the video, what I have already prepared for us. Give me a second, please. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, I'll post you all the links that I mentioned before for the chat at the end of the presentation. Yeah, we will have a couple of minutes so I can answer your questions. Well, let's jump into the demo. Here's an ISO file that I need to mount. Yep. The installation process is pretty simple. It's just click, and that's all. So push the install button. And here is the list of the Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 components. We will choose Veeam backup for Microsoft 365, and with the version 6, you will also be able to deploy Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 REST API and the web portal with restore capabilities. Yeah. So I will fast forward the process. So here's the installation process. There's nothing special here. And at the end, we need to start the main console, the main console of the administrator of the Veeam backup of Microsoft 365 application. So here we at first we need to add a license file. Yeah. And Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 licensing is based on the number of users. So it doesn't matter how many objects, how much space, you just need to count the number of users. So one license for one users for all objects users, emails, OneDrive, personal SharePoint sites, and other stuff. Yeah. So you just need to count the number of users, and that's all. So we have 25 users license. When and here is the list of the special internal components. This one that I show you right now, it's called a backup proxy. It helps us to compress data and store the data on our repository. Yep. And other special components, it's a backup repository. It's a place where you can store your backup files or backed up objects. And here is after the installation process, there is a repository on drive C. So if you need to have your own repository from another drive, you will be able to set it up. Let me show you how it is going. So in this example, I have an additional drive. It can be a drive on local disk, or for example, you can attach your storage system using iSCSI or a Fabric channel and use it as a repository for Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 objects. Yep. So I bring it online, choose the label, and that's it. So we don't need an ISO file anymore. Well, the next phase is we need to set up our backup repository. Yep. So I choose the F drive. So here's the special option. Well, in case we want to choose an object storage, to reduce the cost of object storage, we store a small amount of metadata right here on local disk. So you can put here, you can choose offload backup data to object storage and choose your local folder to be able to use an object storage. Yeah. For example, Amazon S3 or Azure Blob or other that we support. We also have ability to encrypt your data. So you just need to type your password here to be able to encrypt your data. There is a question. Veeam Microsoft 365 can be installed on the same server running with the Veeam backup and replication. Yes, we are able to install Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 on the same server on the same server with the Veeam backup and replication. It's absolutely supported. Well, next. Well, next I need to choose the retention policy. Yep. There are two types of retention policy we have in Veeam backup for Microsoft 365. The first one, which is called snapshot-based retention. And snapshot-based retention means that the retention will be given from the first backup job that you are doing. Yep. And the second option, which is called item level retention, it will keep track on the timestamps of the objects. If I got, for example, an email in January 2020, and I got 3 years retention on my repository, it will be deleted in January 2023. Yeah. So let's move forward. So I will choose item level retention, and here we can choose the retention policy. For example, we can choose keep all the data forever. Yeah, or choose another period from the list we have. Yeah, let's specify. We can specify a number of days, not just years. You can also specify the number of days. Yeah. So we now we need to add our Microsoft 365 organization, or in addition, a hybrid environment, your local Microsoft Exchange or your local SharePoint server. And in my case, I will go with Microsoft 365 organization. I choose a modern authentication. Need to register a new Azure AD application. I choose an automatic overlay. Provide the name of the application. use an appropriate certificate, and log in to Microsoft 365. Of course, using MFA. Yep. Well done. So at this point of time, we have Veeam Backup and Replication Server installed, and we are able to back up our data. Now I'll go to my demo. Yep. Let me show you. So we have Veeam Backup from Microsoft Server installed. I'll jump into the console. So here is the administrator console. I already have two organizations here and a number of jobs. Well, let's have a look at the backup job configuration. Yeah. So every backup job has the ability to choose what type of objects you'd like to back up. In this case, in this job, in this particular job, I will back up all the objects what we have in our organization. But if you want to back up, for example, your emails to the different repository, you can choose the option to back up only your emails and create a job for that. After you choose the objects, you are able to exclude something or add some users. So you can define a job for a number of users or for a group of users and their objects. And right after that, you need to choose an appropriate proxy server and an appropriate backup repository. As I said before, it can be a local storage or an object storage. And now we can choose time period. We can define a schedule. Select select the time. For example, you can back up your data daily at 4 a.m. every day, or during work days, or on Monday, on Tuesday, and or every day. Yeah. So that was how we set up our backup job in with Microsoft with Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. Yeah. Well, let's jump in to our new feature, which is called Self-Service Restore Portal. From here, from the main menu, we can go to the general option. Yeah. And here we need to find a special tab called Restore Portal and put an enable option here to be able to use a Restore Portal. Yep, for end users. Yeah, and of course, using Restore Portal, any user will be able to restore their data. So here is my test user From the list of objects, I can see all the emails of this user, all my, for example, OneDrive files. I can choose several objects. So I guess someone else showing the same demo. Yeah. And for example, yeah. Here's the list of emails in my inbox folder. I can choose, for example, this one, and this one. And if I want to choose other objects from a different folder, I need to add those items to the restore list and move to the other folder. For example, Outbox. There's nothing here. So send items. Yeah, I want to restore these items as well, and add it to the restore list. And here is my here's the list of all my objects where I'd like to restore. So I need to choose them and start the restore process. And that's it. So here is the, as I said before, here's the interface of the end user for him to be able to restore his or her objects. Yep. There's also a status window, so end user also can find information about the restoration process. How is it going? The status, is it normal, success, or are there any errors? And for example, call or ask system administrator or Veeam Backup or Microsoft 365 administrator to help him. But I think in our case, everything is fine. Yeah, status is success. That's cool. Yeah. So here is the main interface of system administrator, and I'm sorry. And here is the Verb self-service portal for end users. And there is another options. For example, you can define the restore operator, the person who will be able to restore users' data in case end users don't want or are not able to restore their data for some reason. So in this case, you can choose from here, from the main menu, your restore operator. For example, let me, in my case, there are two of them. So Dominic and other technical user account. So in this window, I will define the person who will be in charge of restoration process for the users or groups. On the next window, I can define users or groups. Yeah. And at this step, I can exclude someone from the list. Yeah. So in other words, for example, Dominic will be able to restore Elliot's, Amy's, Ivan's, and other users' data with our self-service verb self-service restore verb portal. Yeah. And that's it. Well, at the end of the presentation, I'd like to show you a couple of links that I hope will be useful for you. Well, I told that I send you all the links that I show you today, and let me copy and paste it to the chat window. Give me a couple of seconds. Well, well, if you have if you have any questions, it's time to ask. We have, I guess, a minute or two. Yeah, chat window. So here's the link, the first one. Yep, all entire audience. I need to choose. Yeah, this is the first one. And here's the link for Azure Marketplace. Yep. Yep, and another one for AWS. And that's all. Oh, documentation, of course. System requirements. System requirements. Well, let's get back to the questions. The question about an MFA, I've already shown it, as I remember. If I have a retention policy, am I off 365 tenants? That will cost me. Well, I need to check it. So give me time. I'll give you my email. So please ask your question. And I'll get back to you with an answer. Yeah. Any other questions? any other questions? There are no questions anymore. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming. Well, thank you. Bye.